And thank you for joining the rebroadcast of one of our most popular webinars to date, Sustaining the Values of the Agile Manifesto in Today's Workforce. I'm Colin Mangum, a Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Lucid. I've been here over 7 years. Really excited to talk to you today, especially because the last year or two, I've been hyper-focused on how do we help Agile teams. So today, it can be more difficult than ever to practice Agile principles, especially with the new norm of hybrid workplaces, the rise of AI, and other changes. You'll hear some fantastic tips from Lucid evangelists Brian Stallings and Jessica Gustales on ways to uphold the Agile Manifesto values in a changing workplace. And one of our amazing solutions engineers, Emily Jensen, will show ways to use Lucid for many of those tips. Since we originally hosted this webinar, Lucid has continued to add solutions that empower Agile teams to deliver value effectively. So at the end of the webinar, I'm excited to show you some new Lucid functionality, including our just released Agile Accelerator to further strengthen collaboration, alignment, and responsiveness to change. So I hope you'll stick around for that as well. Now over to Jessica.
We are so excited to have you all here to talk about sustaining the values of the Agile Manifesto in today's workforce, today's crazy workforce. As people are joining, just take a minute, introduce yourself in the chat, who you are, where you're joining from, what your role is. Well, let me do my introduction real quick. My name is Jessica Gustales. I am an evangelist here at Lucid. My background is as an Agile consultant, facilitator, coach, and I am wildly passionate about collaboration, high-performing teams, and the humans that make up these crazy organizations that we're a part of. I am just delighted to be joined today by our very own Brian Stallings and Emily Jensen. Woohoo! Speaking of Brian Stallings, Brian, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, Jessica and Emily, and hello to all of our guests. In fact, I'm quickly scanning the list and I see some names who I recognize. So it's awesome to have you here and respond to our invitation. Those that I don't know, I'm Brian Stallings. I'm Lucid's chief evangelist. Like Jessica, I'm also a credentialed professional coach, professional facilitator, and I've been a leader in the Agile community since its inception. During that time, I've trained and coached hundreds of individuals and teams, worked in a lot of organizations as a coach, and I've been a certified Scrum trainer since 2005. I'm a big advocate for Agile ways of working. And in addition to that, I'm a passionate parent and advocate for things like new ways of working, for collaboration equity, for neurodiverse young people, trying to make a place in the world of work for those that will come after us. And today I do get to work with two of my favorite colleagues, Jessica and Emily. And so let's hear about you, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Emily Jensen. I am a solutions engineer at Lucid, which mostly consists of helping our customers implement Agile methodologies using Lucid software. So I get to work with a lot of the end users who are actually, in the weeds, which is really fun for me.
Very cool. I'm so excited to be working with the two of you today. And before we get started, I just want to cover just a couple of little housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, so you can expect an email with the link to the recording within a day or two, and it's going to be sent to the email that you use to register for this webinar. That email is also going to include some resources, including a community post, blog post, and some training courses. Very exciting. That being said, we don't want this webinar to be us just talking at you. That's boring. We want to hear from you. So feel free to hop into the chat feature that you're all using so delightfully to tell us where you are from, and share your thoughts, share your ideas. Make sure you change your settings to send to everyone instead of just hosts and panelists if you want to interact with the entire group. If you have questions specifically for our Lucid team, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. This is going to help our Lucid team be able to stay on top of questions and answer as many as we can. We actually have some friendly secret helpers here who will answer questions, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Finally, live captions are enabled for this webinar, so you can go ahead and turn those on if you'd like. Brian, maybe it would be helpful to talk about a little bit of history here. Where did this come from?
I'm your go-to for history because I'm so old.
And you were like kind of there.
Well, it's funny because where I live today, I live about 7 miles from Snowbird, Utah, and there's snow on the ground now where I live. So not far away from where the Agile Manifesto was signed. Now, let's remember that the manifesto was created during a time when things were very different, and it was written as a reaction to the ways of working at that time. So some of us that have been around long remember what that was like. It was the opposite, or valuing the items on the right. That was the norm for each of those value statements. So we valued processes and tools and sat in our individual offices to write our software. We valued comprehensive documentation. We wrote tons of documentation in advance of getting started in order to specify out what we were going to be building. And then we locked our plans in place before we started the work. And we negotiated tough with our contracts because we didn't want you to change the contract because that would mess up everything that we had started. And so we would penalize you with terms and conditions and penalties if any late changes came in. And then we would rigorously follow the plan, protect the plan, and try to force out change, right? So that's what we're coming from when the manifesto was created.
Oh, I unfortunately remember those days. And I am so glad that we don't have to continue to live that insanity. And we know that things have changed a bit and shifted since it was written. Remote and hybrid has really become kind of ways of working in ways that we hadn't expected. So there's a little bit of rub that we have noticed in trying to align ourselves to these agile values. For example, individual team members are working in different places, different time zones. Trying to keep processes consistent across different teams can be really difficult. We're making decisions asynchronously. We've got teams. I noticed there was someone from the Philippines. We've got Philippines over here, North America over here. We're trying to stay in line with our decision making. It can be really difficult.
Yeah.
Documentation, capturing information for the team's use, especially, again, asynchronous work. How do we make sure that we all continue to stay on the same page? Processes and tools. We actually do have to rely a little more heavily on tools for things like this and other ways that that we interact with one another. So in order to collaborate, for example, Brian and I live in very different places and we collaborate every day. So how do we continue to lean on individuals and interactions and use the processes and tools in ways that'll help? We'll talk about that.
I hope that what people take away, Jessica and Emily, by the end is that we can honor the values of the manifesto, the intent, and create high-performing team experiences. And how might we do that today?
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed. So here's what I know, or at least that I believe, is that people are what make Agile so effective. And people need certain things in place in order for their teams to be effective, to work on these complicated, interesting problems that we're all trying to solve. We need the ability to communicate effectively. Transparency, obviously a huge part of Agile. We need to be able to remain aligned, and we need to be able to have flexibility. And what I like about Lucid is it really helps your teams to communicate, establish transparency and alignment, and is flexible enough to enable your team in any situation. All right, so that's the setup. Why don't we dive into value number one, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So let's talk about why this is hard sometimes. The Agile Manifesto calls for collaborative work where team members come together to communicate directly, individuals and interactions, make decisions collaboratively, and attempt to reduce reliance on tools and processes. This used to be easier because we all sat in the same room. We would meet face to face. We could lean over and ask one another questions, or work on the same keyboard even at times, right?
Right.
but we don't anymore. As I mentioned, Brian's in Utah, I'm in Minneapolis, and yet somehow we've got to figure out ways to collaborate together. So there are times that we'll do something like Brian and I set up an all-day Zoom if we're working on a really big piece of work. And that way we can work together as if we were sitting side by side. So we might have our videos off and our microphones off, but I can pop in at any moment and say, "Hey, Brian, can I get a little bit of feedback on this?" Or "I'm stuck on something. Do you want to help me out for a second?" And Brian can do the same for me. It's really, really helpful. Brian, what are some other additional tips for sustaining the values of individuals and interactions over processes and tools?
Well, so as you said, so much has changed, and some things still haven't. And I like to think about it this way. For example, we still have our agile teams. That's our who. It hasn't changed. We still have objectives and a vision that we're pursuing. That's our what and our why. We still have our sprint cadence. That's our when. But for most of us, the thing that we no longer have in common is our where. So the where has disappeared in some cases. And we used to have that physical place that you described. I loved being there surrounded by team members where we could interact and collaborate. And that's not our current state. And actually, I've learned to love being wherever we are and still being able to collaborate. So I think the big tip today on this one would be to establish a virtual where. And this should be like a common digital environment, a place where every team member can come together, where we can communicate, where we can collaborate and do that visually, where we can share documents and have a creative space that will work for us, whether we're there at the same time or if we're collaborating asynchronously in a moment. And I've seen this work amazingly well with tools like Lucid Chart. And I really want to challenge everybody here to experiment with this concept. It's a great opportunity for us.
I am so excited for Emily to show us how this might work in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So to establish a virtual where, Lucid has a wonderful function called team spaces. So what team spaces are is they're a place for teams to coordinate and initiate work. It can help provide a lot of transparency and ease of communication for either your individual team, maybe a broader group. This lets you take content from across the Lucid suite, such as swim lane diagrams. If you got your sprint reviews, you can stick them in here too. But maybe more importantly, it lets you take content from disparate sources like a PowerPoint deck, a Google slide deck, maybe you've got some Figma mocks. You can have that all embedded and accessed through the same place to make sure that everybody is on the same page without needing to go to many different places to find the relevant content. The other thing that Team Spaces does that I really love is it helps provide a lot of the team kind of camaraderie that tends to go missing when you're in a more hybrid environment. So we can have, an up-to-date Kanban board with various progress from the team, live and accessible by everybody. Or you can even have, pictures from your team to make sure that, you're all getting that human element of a grouping without having to be in the same physical place and see pictures on a desk. You can have a brag board, some working agreements. It can be a really great way to establish a team dynamic without needing to be in the same physical location.
This is so fun. There's so many of these at Lucid where teams just decorate the heck out of it. You should have seen it for Valentine's Day. One of the rooms looked like Cupid had thrown up in the room. It was so funny. And I just have to say a quick, I love seeing Emily's picture with Emily's partner on that.
Those are our engagement pictures. Thank you so much.
I love it. What a great way to come together and collaborate. I mean, it's like being in the room together. That's really just helpful. Thanks, Emily.
Of course.
All right, let's move to working software over comprehensive documentation. So let's talk about the struggle here. What we know is that there's not a lot of value in doing what Brian described at the beginning of like stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of documents. We don't have to create, maintain, and review these long specification documents anymore when we can actually see the working software in operation. We know that with Agile, the only real measure of progress is running tested features, providing value. So part of what I love about Lucid is that it really automatically creates a living blueprint of your ideas. So for example, instead of having to document a brainstorm or the actions that come from it, well, honestly, we used to just take pictures of it, right? Well, instead we have it right there in Lucid, visible and ready to use. So exciting. Brian, what are some other tips for sustaining the value of working software over comprehensive documentation?
Well, I really like what you said, Jessica. And as I think about the values, I think about the principles, the principles that underlie the Agile Manifesto too. And I think the principles that support this value include making our highest priority that of satisfying our customer through earliest and continuous delivery of valuable software. Also, the bit about face-to-face and we should say other high fidelity ways of communicating. These are the best methods to convey information. And so it's essential that we also consider it helps us to maximize the amount of work not done, right? These are important to me, I think, when we discuss documentation and how we're going to interact together. So when taken together, these values and principles don't mean no documentation. And I think that's sometimes what people assume when they are first introduced to the manifesto. Rather, the documentation that we create should support getting to working software. And it should add values to the people who are going to consume, should add value to the people who are going to consume that document. So while Agile teams might avoid a lot of different types of formal docs that might just have a transitory value, say we sketch something up, and we used to then take that kind of sloppy copy sketch and turn it into some formalized UML or some other type of document. Now we might just leave it sketch because it's there on our Lucid chart board, and that's sufficient. And so we should then prioritize the documents that help create persistent value. And those would be things like docs for our end users or for our operations team, for compliance purposes, our technical design docs, so we could kind of keep track of where we've come from. And I think that creates a highly efficient way in which we can do work, because as we work in tools like Lucidchart and LucidSpark, we're creating that history as we go. We're creating a record of what we've done, the decisions that we've made, the things that we tried, and oftentimes that serves as self-sufficient documentation, right? It's just enough. So just think about that. Individuals no longer are going to meetings with separate notes in their journals or diaries and coming away with a different understanding of what was discussed there. Instead, we're collaborating on notes on a LucidSpark board during the meeting. And all of that is visible to us as we collaborate, which simplifies the work to make sense of the information and create a clear understanding between all of us. And that shared whiteboard can really serve for us if we collaboratively generate it. And it functions as a document. Sometimes we refer to this as a living blueprint because it's constantly up to date by the work that we do. And so that effort and such can be eliminated. Where we used to spend so much extra time and effort, we can now focus on the real value.
Oh,
I think I have a lot to say there.
well, I love that, Brian. And actually, you're making me think how much easier would it be to onboard somebody when you've got all of the history of the decisions that have been made and how you work together. It's all living, like you said. That just sounds amazing.
Yeah, walk you through our history.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Emily, will you show us how this works in practice using Lucid?
I would love to. So, Lucid has, okay, let's back up. Say you are just coming into a brainstorming session. You have all these great ideas on the canvas. The last thing that you want to do is take all of this content and create a formal document in a different tool. It's a lot of manual work. It's really error prone, just generally pretty miserable. With Lucid, specifically Lucid Spark, what you can do is you can take all of these sticky notes, take all this content, and you can drop it into what's called a dynamic table. And this lets you quickly make sense of your content. So I can organize it maybe by fill color and maybe by some tags, so we can get an understanding of which team is doing what. This lets me quickly digest the content that we came up with, so I don't have to spend a ton of time making formal documentation in a different tool. I can have it all in the same place. Oh, sorry, Jess, did you have something to say?
Oh, I just love this because I know I was one of the heroes that used to try and organize things for everyone, and just being able to do it automatically and get tagging help from everyone, just the simplicity of it is so perfect.
Yes, that's the most thankless and maybe the most miserable job. My heart goes out to you, Jess. Um, the other thing that you can do within Lucid is automatically different versions will be saved anytime edits are made to the document. So we really put the living blueprint here. You can see exactly how your project has changed over time without needing to keep separate documents. And this way you can get kind of a full picture of the entirety of your project, again, without any manual intervention. So that can make life much, much easier instead of having to create multiple duplicative documents.
Oh, you know what else I think is great? I love the emojis and just how colorful this can be. This is just, you can see that this group of people really have fun working together.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's dive into customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So let's talk about why this might be difficult to sustain in today's workforce. So with Agile, we know that we have the opportunity to, shocking, learn things along the way. We are actually prepared for things to emerge. We expect that things need to change. Different from we would make all of our decisions way, way, way up front at the moment that we knew the absolute least about what we were going to do. So we allow that emergence to happen as we're working together. And because we allow that emergence, we need to be able to collaborate with our customers and stakeholders along the way. This is a huge world shift, I think. We used to write contracts to try to zap each other, essentially, for failing to meet some obscure contract term or for failing to see around the 156th corner that you're as you work to try and get all this stuff together. And instead, we're coming together to collaborate as customers and as builders of things. So it's really exciting. And there's some clarity that's needed as we do this. So as human beings, we are really, really wanting to understand one another. One of our our head of product here at Lucid talks about human beings have been trying to communicate with one another effectively since the early cave days, right? When the conversations it's not enough. We actually need to draw things out. So cave drawings all over the place. They're very cool. If you have the chance to go check some out, they're awesome. But that's how we were attempting to communicate with one another. Perhaps you've seen a cartoon that Jeff Patton often shares that has all of these fun little folks who are having wonderful conversations, and they're sitting there going, yep, okay, we are all in agreement. That's fantastic. But you can see that one has a square, one has a circle, and one has a triangle. And when they actually draw it out, they get the opportunity to say, oh, wait a minute, we actually aren't on the same page. Let's work together, let's collaborate together. And you can see by the end of it, because they're using visuals, and we love visuals, that they're actually coming up with something even better because they have the ability to tangibly see what one another is talking about. So we need to be able to do that with our customers as well, because we certainly don't want our customers or our stakeholders walking away looking at thinking that we're building a triangle and we're actually over here building a circle, right? So, Brian, what are some ways we can sustain the value of customer collaboration?
Nice. I love how that cartoon points to co-creation, for example, and the clarity that comes from that. And so I think that this might be one of the easiest values, the easiest part of the manifesto to continue to sustain. And with the use of products here at Lucid, we can create an incredibly collaborative experience together with our customers, our stakeholders. And in that process, we establish a higher standard of alignment around what we're seeing and doing when we co-create together. So I think our big tip would be to co-create with your customer, to bring them into that environment. And it could be right into the team's collaborative environment, similar to what Emily showed us, and capture their ideas and talk through where we're at and show them examples of the roadmap that we're working on or the backlog items that are coming up next. Get them to co-create some of those with us. You might even create a bespoke room just for that collaboration with your customer so that you can have multiple sessions with them. Through this, you can have a high amount of customer interaction. You can get an increased quality of feedback. And we can use simple techniques like the visuals that we've described, and some I know Emily has up her sleeve that she's going to show us in just a minute, to enable kind of quick turnaround of decision-making, one of the hard things, right, when a group is together. So I think in this way, we can get that immediate feedback. We can get that increased clarity that I mentioned. And the nature of this kind of collaboration results in far fewer gaps in our understanding and little need for sparring over those contract details that you mentioned.
Nice. We don't have to zap each other anymore. Isn't that nice? Emily, I know everyone's going to be excited to see how this works in Lucid.
Yeah, so I'm excited to show. So if we have all of the disparate parties we need, we've got all of the teamwork split up, now comes, how do we prioritize this, both, internally as well as maybe with your customers? You want to get a good understanding of what Team 3's priorities should be. That can be really difficult on a phone call or on a Zoom call. Everybody has to go around and wait for their turn to talk, and it can be really challenging to tell exactly how different people are prioritizing or awaiting certain items. And that's kind of where visual activities comes in. So visual activities is something unique to Lucid, and it's actually my personal favorite thing about Lucid. Don't tell the rest of the features. It can be found in this top left little rocket ship icon here. And what we can do is we can take the content maybe from Team 3 over here, and we can create this visual activity by placing the votable items in your little landing zone here. And now once we publish this, what we can do is we can send this out to all of our participants, and they'll come in and they'll be able to view this kind of clean slate and prioritize these items on this axis where they see as fit. This allows people to come in, do this either asynchronously or without even having to come off mute, and submit their feedback. And Lucid will automatically aggregate everybody's responses. And you can see exactly how much people prioritize certain items over others. You can get individual responses. If I wanted to see maybe how Jess voted, I can see exactly where Jess placed hers, or I can get the average and make sure that we're taking everybody's feedback into account. This provides way more granularity than just straight up-down voting, because you can see exactly how much people's thoughts are different. The other thing that it does that I really love, that I think is super important, is it raises a lot of voices that may not feel comfortable speaking up in a broader setting. It can be really daunting to come off mute and provide really honest feedback to a group of a couple hundred people that you don't know. And this is a much more disarming, much more honest way of submitting that feedback and having it actually get heard. It's also just so much faster than having to have each of those 100 people provide their input on a singular call there.
I love how it lands the decision, right? It's like the data's here, the conversation can move on quickly. We all see the same thing together. Alignment is resulting from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the idea that we can visually see how far or how close apart we are from one another really focuses our continued conversation after that. It's like we don't have to sit in near violent agreement with one another, because we can see, oh, we're actually close enough to move forward, or wow, we're really far apart. This piece needs conversation. That's lovely.
Jessica, just as an aside for everybody listening, is while we've done a lot of work to create some prepackaged visual activities, the capability in Lucid allows you to start with one of ours and adapt it with your own text and maybe your own shapes. And just like Emily showed, it's quick. So check it out. And we've got lots of great guidance on how to adapt and create your own visual activity for you as well.
There's also fun ones in there. Like I think there was a day of uproar when we were trying to decide if things were sandwiches.
Yes, that's my personal favorite. Is it a sandwich? You can vote if you think a hot dog is a sandwich or not. Personally, I think a hot dog is a sandwich, but tacos are not. And why, what is cake even doing on here? But I digress.
Yes, it was quite the stir here at Lucid when that one came out.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about value 4, responding to change over following a plan. Okay, so how might this be difficult? So as we mentioned, in the way back machine, change was nearly impossible because we would create, like I said, these concrete plans that would last 9 months, a year, year and a half. And we made all of those decisions at the very moment that we knew the least. And then we cast it in stone and tried to move on. Brian, didn't you tell me that your first class on project management had a full day on protecting the plan?
Protecting the plan. Absolutely.
And I personally still wince at the memories of requests for a PowerPoint deck, the days when you'd have to build and polish and polish and polish and polish a PowerPoint doc, which of course, then at that point, I certainly didn't want the plan to change because I made this beautiful PowerPoint doc. So I also needed to protect the plan.
You know, that's probably, oh, sorry, but that's probably still very true for some folks who haven't yet experienced the power of Lucid's Visual Collaboration Suite.
That's true. I feel for you because ugh, ugh. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. A little past trauma going on over here. But with Agile, we get to work in a way that allows for uncertainty and learning and emergence. And we're working on these crazy, complex, interesting problems that is completely needed. We have to allow change to emerge. This is so important. And to be able to respond to change, we also have to be able to see the change and easily pivot to accommodate, all while keeping everyone on the same page. Brian, how are we going to sustain this value in today?
I've been thinking about this one a lot, and I went back to the 2 principles that really underlie this value, right? Where we talk about harnessing change for the customer's competitive advantage. And I also thought about number 10, which was tuning and adjusting the team's behaviors accordingly, right? These are times where we're responding to change. And not just responding, but it says we should harness change, make it our competitive advantage. We should then embrace that change, right? That's amazing to me. So, especially since change is hard for organizations. Now, we've talked about the power of visuals and how they are a fantastic way to create alignment around meaning, to establish clarity. Even in the context of what is our change target, we could better clarify what that is through things that we've described today. And that concept of using our documents as a living blueprint, or a Lucid Spark, Lucid Chart canvas as a living blueprint, that ensures that our history and that what we're collecting together, it's already there, right? And so that drives down the effort and drives down the cost of change, and we can confirm the changes that we need to make along the way together visually in that history. So I think it becomes more easy then to communicate using the power of visuals to communicate what that change is, even if it's outside the organization. And Lucid has a great capability where you can publish links, for example. You could publish to a PDF. You could embed the board in a wiki, or et cetera, right? Lots of different ways so that as you make changes together, the magic of that technology allows you to ensure that you've updated it in all the various places where you've linked or published your information. And so others can be quickly responsive to changes that are sharing. And so you can respond, you can pivot quickly in Lucid rather than in polishing your documents like you described, or working on a Google Doc together, PowerPoint together. I just think Lucid is a natural fit in our ability to move quickly and with clarity. So that's my tip.
Very nice. Emily, I know we're excited for you to wow us for the 4th time. Show us how this can work in Lucid.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucid by nature is a really flexible tool, but one of my favorite, I guess, flexions of Lucid is that it has 2 purpose-built tool sets. So if you have something that's a little bit more polished, a little bit more formal, like say this process flow or maybe an architecture diagram, and you decide, you know what, this isn't working. We need to reevaluate, we need to reassess, and come up with a better solution based off of that kind of new information we're getting. Get from either customers or supplied internally. What you can do is you can take this very polished diagram and we can come and we can switch into a collaborative tool set that includes things like freehand drawing, that includes the option to link Jira issues or add sticky note commentary on top of it. And this kind of helps reduce document sprawl because you can have all of this on the same place. Thanks, Jess, who's providing some great ideas. And it's all still visible to everybody who has access to it, either through those published links that Brian mentioned, or maybe it's in some internal wiki like a Confluence page, or even just in their My Docs page or Team Spaces. It lets everybody kind of get on the same page without needing to kind of create duplicate content in multiple locations.
What
And again, oh, go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah,
Jess, I got excited.
I was going to say what I absolutely love about this is it feels like what we used to do is like we'd be working on something at one tool bench, right, that had all of these tools here. And then you'd need to do something different. So you'd have to gather everything up and like carry it over to a different workbench that had a whole different set of tools to do that kind of work over here. And with this really fast change up, it feels like we're just changing out our tools and our stuff actually just gets to stay there. So there's less likelihood of things getting lost or dropped on the floor or the technical equivalent of dropping it on the floor and it rolling underneath somebody else's workbench.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned what this is called, Emily, but I did see Michaela posted it in the chat. So this is that mind-blowing feature of Universal Canvas where all the tool sets are available to you with a quick switch.
Yeah, there's even a keyboard shortcut. So you can switch between them without needing to actually hit that button.
Oh, that's amazing. And some of you may
Yeah.
not know about this because it's also relatively new. A lot of things that we've shared today, our colleagues in Europe call them fire sparks. You know, what are those bright, shiny, hot, you know, sparks that we might want to learn about?
Yeah, Lucid Spark, but the new ones are Lucid Fire Spark.
Don't tell branding, they're going to bust through my door.
Well, yeah, the product name shall not be touched, of course, right?
That's right. Well, thank you, both of you. It really feels like both of these or all 4 of these actually seem very possible using additional support, really, is what we're doing, supporting these agile teams, these agile organizations to be able to do their best work, to be able to see and build the future. It's very exciting. But before we do, we've got a couple of fun takeaways for you. We have our link to the Lucid community, which includes a bunch of great templates. And that is also an amazing spot to come if you've got a question about something, if you're building something that you want to show off, if you want to, you're building something and you get stuck and you want to see if anybody else has done something. If you're thinking, I really want to do this, but I don't want to recreate the wheel. I wonder if somebody else has tried something like this. All of those conversations are happening over there in the community. So we welcome you in there. And then we also added in a link to the Lucid training labs. So that's your opportunity to dive even deeper on all of these cool new features, get really slick and smooth, just like Emily at using the Lucid suite.
Amazing. So as Brian and Jessica mentioned, teams need to prioritize collaboration, transparency, alignment, and flexibility in order to maintain the values of the Agile Manifesto. And that's exactly what the Lucid Suite can help teams achieve. And we didn't stop with those features you just saw. Since this webinar, we have built a lot of additional capabilities specifically with Agile teams in mind. I'm going to show you some features that you can use in Lucid right now. And on top of that, we just released the Agile Accelerator. This solution, which can be added to the Lucid suite, will help organizations better scale Agile practices and increase visibility at every level. So I'll give you a preview of that as well. But first, let's show what's new related to prioritizing individuals and interactions. So Brian talked about creating a virtual where, and Emily showed off team spaces. But I also want to introduce you to Team Hubs, which we launched last year. Team Hubs and Team Spaces combine to be really powerful, and we continue to add more and more functionality centered around teams. So Team Hubs, which you can see here, and you can navigate here with this drop down to the different teams. So you can see I'm in a Team Hub here. They're a place to store documents and eliminate the concern of, wait, did I share that with the right person? Did I give them the right permissions and access? We've all been through that with different documents. But there's more to a Team Hub than simply a place for Lucid documents that you can also do. So you can not only add Lucid documents, but you can also share these and add quick links. So you can see here, I've added a Confluence page, a Jira backlog. You can see there's many options. This makes it really easy for team members to not have to go hunt them down in various places and trust that the right content and the right context is here available to them in the Team Hub. You can also create a team space like Emily showed that will be pinned on the left side, similar, over here. And this can kind of be your virtual where, again, this team space or this team room. So if I open that up, you can see this one is really geared towards an Agile team. You can see, a team charter, you've got the different team members, different working agreements, reference materials, again, a lot of the things that you already saw. And another thing that is really nice is that by creating a team in Lucid, you can also share directly with those teams. So again, we've all been in that place where you have to type out 8 different people names. You hope you don't forget anyone. You hope you spell them all right. Now I can click Agile Team. That was the Team Hub I was in. I click here to share. I can invite, and now I can trust that everyone on the team has the same access and everyone has what they need. There is one more thing I want to show that is part of our new Agile Accelerator that was just released. As I mentioned earlier, this was part of our April 3rd Lately at Lucid announcement. To help organizations more easily scale and set their teams up for success within the Agile Accelerator, there is a team planner where you can mass create these team hubs. You can import a CSV and create teams. You can also tag them to make it easier to share the right things with the right teams or groups of teams at the right time. Now moving to working software over comprehensive documentation. Brian and Emily talked about using Lucid for living documentation like architecture diagrams and even planning documents. While that's definitely still a great use case for Lucid, I want to talk about this value in a slightly different way. For me, part of focusing on working software over documentation is the ability to efficiently go through aspects of Agile events and Agile work. We've built many new templates that help create starting points for teams. And don't worry, these aren't specific to a single framework. These could be used by any team and are super flexible. What you're looking at here is a retrospective template we have, but if you click here on templates, you can see we have hundreds of templates, including this Agile category where you can see there's so many different options for Scrum, Kanban, Safe, and even just general Agile practices and Agile principles. Within these templates, we have many facilitator controls and quick actions to make the experience engaging for the facilitator and the participants. So some things that we've added are ways to bring actual features onto the canvas to make it really convenient. So I can click here for a laser pointer. If I know as I go through, I'm going to want a laser pointer. During the retrospective, if I know I'm going to want a timer for 30 minutes to make sure that we stay on track, I can have that readily available. That helps me stay on top of things as a facilitator and make sure that participants are engaged and can follow along easily. But another thing that I love about these kind of templates and using Lucid in this way is it helps create a clear way of working and ability to look back on plans or even review how and why decisions were made. So for example, think of a retrospective that you want to revisit to make sure that the team has worked on some of those areas of improvement. So if I come over here to what should we do differently, I can actually use this as a way to look back and use it as kind of documentation, right? So now it's easy to find and review without spending time to create, really comprehensive documentation after the fact, or, spend way too much time on on this versus actually just reviewing and acting on it. So to make sharing proven ways of working and what's been successful for other teams even more scalable, within the Agile Accelerator, we've introduced blueprints. A blueprint is a set of templates that I can give to teams as a starting point for their Agile work, like product discovery or big room planning. I could start with one of these pre-made blueprints, but you can also make a custom one. Maybe my organization has some ways of working through a sprint that have proven successful for teams. We've already built out templates for things like sprint planning or sprint reviews and retrospectives with these methods in mind. And now I can add all of these templates into a blueprint called Sprint to give teams a consistent starting point. Once I have this blueprint ready, now I can easily share it with the right teams, as we saw with the team planner. So switching gears to customer collaboration, Brian and Emily talked about many great features, including a personal favorite, visual activities. There are so many features I could show off that strengthen this value, including many that I just showed in that retrospective template. But let me show you a feature we released last year. There may be times within your team or with your customer, whether they be an internal or external customer, where you need really honest dialogue and worry that someone might hold back. Lucid has a private mode that makes it so you can work in a canvas with multiple people, but as stickies are added, you can't see who is adding them or what they're typing until you end the private session. So if I come up here, again, I can see private mode right here. I've also added it as a quick action to make it really easy if I know I want to use it. And when I click here, you can see that as I start this session, I'm going to be able to see what I'm typing, but it's going to be on this blue sticky. Anyone else that's typing, I can't see whose cursor it is, and I can't see what they're typing. This can be a great way to create psychological safety or reduce bias in many different situations and in collaborative environments. And to build on the visual activities that Emily showed, there are times when part of the collaboration needs to happen with internal stakeholders and leaders. With the Agile Accelerator, you can include visual activities as well as frames in the templates to gather insights from teams. This is a great way to surface team confidence or blockers in a natural way that helps you make the best decisions as a team and organization for your customer. So now that insights are clicked to share within this blueprint, let me show you what happens when the blueprint is being used. Once team members start completing the activity, their responses, along with other team responses, are automatically collected and summarized into this comprehensive dashboard. At a glance, management can get a pulse on how each team is doing and determine who might need extra support or what conversations around changes or trade-offs need to happen with a customer. Finally, let's talk about responding to change over following a plan. This is the part I've been most excited to show because there's so many incredible features to show off. But one thing I want to emphasize before I do is that this value doesn't say don't have a plan. It is to respond to change instead of following the plan no matter what. I feel like sometimes with Agile that can kind of be misconstrued, that it just means kind of go with the flow and do whatever. So I'm going to show some functionality that helps teams during planning to have it be more engaging, but also helps respond to change as it comes up. We have heard from many customers that working in a task management system like Jira or Azure DevOps presents challenges for having collaborative and engaging meetings. That said, teams often run meetings out of these tools for efficiency purposes. Lucid can help solve this with our bidirectional integrations with Jira and ADO and kind of give you the best of both worlds. Let's start by showing off how a team would estimate, story points or talk through different tasks. So if I come in and start this planning session by using team estimation to collaboratively gauge the level of effort associated with each task or epic with our meeting participants, I can come in here and do that as a team in a much more collaborative way than before. So we know it's challenging to get all team members' perspectives in order to achieve alignment and to do it in, again, an unbiased way. So each of the Lucid cards on the right over here represent a backlog item that the team can use a planning poker style approach to reach consensus on its estimate. So simply have each team member drag out their story point estimate. So I'm going to drag this and you can see this drop zone appear below the card. And if I drop that, it records a vote. Now I can see what people on the team have voted. And you can see here, wow, we are definitely not aligned here. One thinks it's really big, one thinks it's really small, right? Same thing here. Okay, now we can have a better sense. So this view can really provide a way to discuss differing opinions. And once you, get alignment and gain alignment, now I can say, you know what, we've discussed it. Once we've heard everyone out, we do think it's 5. I'm going to go ahead and apply estimate. Now you can see that estimate here on the card. You can also see we have the same thing for t-shirt sizes here. So these are out of the box custom shape banks that you can use. And it's a really powerful and collaborative way to reach alignment on backlog items. And as I mentioned, Lucid integrates with Jira and Azure DevOps. And we also have API support to integrate with others so that you can create data-backed cards instead of just these generic Lucid cards. So this is critical for teams to work efficiently and to have confidence in the data they're seeing in both Lucid and the system of record. So I'm going to show Jira as the example, but again, very similar for Azure DevOps. So if I click import Jira issues, you can see I can come in here. It's going to give me ways to filter. I can do a JQL query. I can bring these in, and I can import these tasks onto the canvas. So once you have Jira-backed cards on the canvas, you can organize them using Lucid's dynamic tables like you see here. This is an intelligent table that you can pivot to see the cards displayed by many different dimensions and criteria. So for this exercise, maybe I'm going to want to have it, you can see here, by assignee and by parent or by epic, right? But I could do by status, I could do it by sprint, I could do it by size, right? There's all sorts of options here. And all that we're doing is pivoting the way that it's being seen. So the data is from Jira, but we're seeing the data in this table. As we do this, you can move cards between rows in a very collaborative and engaging way as you plan with your team, right? So again, maybe we're having this discussion and Austin says, hey, you know what? It looks like Seth has a lot going on and the feedback channel integration surveys is really similar to the feedback categorization system. Why don't I take that on? So Austin could drag this over and you can now see it's updating. It's changed the initials to be assigned to Austin. So now this updates the system of record, but also now it is easier than ever to create a plan. But think how much better this experience is to discuss needed changes they arrive than, as I heard on a customer call last week, rummaging through Jira. With the Agile Accelerator, we are taking this to the next level with scenario planning. It has a similar capability, but it wraps in some additional intelligence to make some calculations around capacity automatically and show them in the dynamic table. Imagine a group of teams doing quarterly planning. I could make a new plan, add it to my canvas, and list out 3 key initiatives that that group is going to work on. Next, I can add Scrum teams to each initiative, and as I add them, the estimated capacity increases based on assumptions we have about average velocity and other factors. Now let's see what happens when I assign an epic. First, the card automatically resizes based on the estimated velocity of those Scrum teams. And when I drop in an extra large epic, it stretches across a longer amount of time. This is something that we're working on that's in beta that we're really excited about. And you can now see that we get real-time feedback on how the scenario is mapping across our timeline and with our date in mind. If we can get a sense that we're planning too aggressively and we can adjust. As we keep plotting out this product launch, we can map out dependencies and prioritize the highest impact items. So you can see how this can really help as we respond to change and make sure that we're making the best and most informed decisions. So I hope you all are excited about all of these possibilities of using Lucid, both with your Lucid license, Lucid Suite license, as well as with the Agile Accelerator, and all the possibilities to sustain the Agile Manifesto values and deliver value to your customers more effectively. We will send some follow-up resources via email and in the Lucid community so you can start using these features and get your hands on the new Agile Accelerator. Thanks for joining us.